That wraps up our women's portion for Tulsa. We're going to move now to the men. Frank Haith, the head coach for the Tulsa men's basketball program. Here's a look inside one of their practices.
Got to raise up. You can't be flat. You got to get up in almost to the slot area when you back cut. Okay? Now, at any time we can't enter that ball, we can dribble into it, right? So, Sam, if you can't enter the ball, boom, then he's going to be pinning in. You're going to reverse it, and then we're in it. You got it? You don't even have to go that far. Okay, so as soon as you dribble a hand off, you got to work your way back up to the top of the key, all right? When you drive the ball here, it's going to be hard to master with your right hand. You got a bunch of inside hand, okay? Get back, go. Chop. Once that ball goes back to the inbounder, you're in play. Either off the glass, Nikita, or dunk it. Off the glass, Ray. High release, Nikita, high release. Get that ball up. Good shot, Sterling. Always just play hard. I know the biggest thing is it's hard for you. You're learning the 3 and the 4. They're basically the same thing, but some stuff is going to be ran for you. You really got to know. Okay? Hey, deliver the blow. You deliver the blow. Don't let him push on you. You knock you off balance. You deliver the blow. Do your work early. There you go, Josh. Towards the basket. Too big, too strong. Sucker, you lift Reynolds Coliseum. Back out like that. So if you come off, you throwing the ball, sprint out there. Okay, that's not our offense. Here we go. Box out, let's go. Deliver the blow. You let him push you underneath the basket. You go at him. Your body, they're going to shove you underneath the basket. Once you see shot, your first attempt is to go hit him. If you let him get to you, he's going to shove you in the basket. Okay? Go at him.
Frank Haith is in it. You see some head coaches that sit back and let the assistants do it. He is one-on-one there working with his players. Mike, when you look at this team, they lost 2 leading scorers from last year. What's ahead for Tulsa?
They have an interesting makeup. Last season, defensive rebounding was a big issue. They play a matchup, amoeba-like zone that is very difficult to figure out. It's very difficult to scout against. They don't have a single scholarship player that's under 6'3" this season. They're big, they're physical, they're aggressive. And I think rebounding is going to drastically improve. I think defensively they're going to improve as well. Athleticism and size is there. Will they be able to find continuity on offense? That's something that we're going to find out early in the non-conference play.
Well, let's join Frank Haith joining us now, head coach at Tulsa, there for his 8th season there. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Last year there were so many disruptions. When you entered this season, what was the #1 thing you wanted to improve upon?
Well, we obviously you just listened to you guys talk about losing those 2 guys, 2 starters, and we wanted to make sure we were had more balance within our team. We wanted to improve offensively. I think if you look back to last season, we had some really good defensive numbers. Now down the stretch there we lost a little bit of that, but we were pretty good. Offensive is where we struggle, and rebound is where we struggle. I think you'll see improvements in those areas with this team. At least at practice, so we look like we have a little bit more offensive punch in terms of shooting the basketball. I think our post guys will be better. You look, Ray Adoa was his first year last year with him coming back, and I think you'll see an improvement with Josh and Nikita, both those guys giving us some balance in there. But bringing back Jariah Horn too, who we played as a post at times, even the year before, which becomes a matchup problem. But we've got good athleticism. We've got good toughness. I think this team will show some improvements in all areas.
Coach, we have some questions from the media members via Zoom. Tom's going to take the first question for you.
Thanks, Chris. Our first question will come from Aaron Wilson at WATN. Aaron, if you can unmute yourself. Aaron, we'll go back to you. Kelly Hines, how about we go with you from Tulsa World?
Frank, with how much Darian has improved year to year, what is that next step going to be for him?
Yeah, Kelly, thanks. He's got to, continue to just. I've asked him to be more of a leader, vocal leader. I think that's an area that he could grow in. Darian plays with a chip on his shoulder, and I don't ever want him to stop doing that. I think obviously his shooting is something that has improved year to year, but he's found ways to affect the game just based on being on the floor and doing the little things. And I think Darian has spent all summer, this spring and summer, really trying to be a more complete offensive player. And I think, but with that said, though, Kelly, I don't want him to forget who he is, because who he is helps us win basketball games, and he still needs to continue to do those things. Being a guy that's guard the other team's best player, come up with loose balls, just play with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And I think Darian, with that, if he can continue to do that and improve incrementally a little bit on his offensive game, I think he'll bring some punch to this team.
All right, we'll go next to TJ Eckert at KTUL.
Yeah, Coach, can you just talk about bringing Darian Horn back? Kind of a unique situation, it seems like, with how crazy the transfer portal can be, getting and then bringing him right back.
Yeah, TJ, I think that, obviously the transfer portal, when Darian, left, came to me 2 years ago and wanted to transfer, it was I understood it. He was a senior, he's graduated, and he wanted to experience something else, and I supported that. And, but when he wanted to come back, I support that too. And I think that Darian's, I've seen him grow. He's been with me for 3 years. He's a wonderful young man. I think his leadership has really, really improved. He's a guy that can affect the game, obviously because he can stretch the defense. But Darian is a good rebounder too. You look at what he did at Colorado. He was their second leading scorer and leading rebounder. And I think, you talked about earlier how we struggled rebounding the ball last year. I think it will help in that area. But the biggest thing Darian can bring to this team is what he does in that locker room. We've got a lot of new guys, a lot of young guys. His leadership is extremely important to helping us grow and develop as a basketball team.
And can you maybe hit on the recruitment of Gavin Elcomiel? I covered him in Joplin when he was at Pitt, and really explosive guy. He obviously moved on to a prep school, but maybe hit on his recruitment a little bit.
Yeah, Gavin is a young man. All three of those freshmen are going to have great careers here. And Gavin is a young man that, he tore his ACL last year, so he didn't play basketball last year, so he's not 100%. You talk about his explosiveness. And he and I have had several conversations of talking about how he should modify his game from what he's used to being. He's used to being this explosive athlete. Well, he's not quite there yet, but what he can do is really shoot the basketball. I mean, he's got an unbelievable stroke from deep, and he's had some practices where he's been tough to defend. And I've seen him adjust, and I think that's good players are able to do that. He's not able to do some of the things he could do or he did in high school, but he's getting closer and closer to that. But while he's doing that, he's really understanding slowing his game down and being a guy that can stretch the defense. He fights on the other end of the floor too. Very competitive. As I said, I think he's going to have a great career at TU.
Hey, Coach, Sam Griffin is a guy who can really stretch the defense. How important is he from an offensive standpoint? You have great athletes, some of the best rim finishers in the American Conference, but bring a guy like that in, is he a guy that can be that X factor for you guys offensively to really stretch the floor and open up the driving lanes?
Yeah, great question. I think Sam has been outstanding in practices. We had an inter-squad scrimmage the other day. He had 29. I mean, he's terrific. I mean, our guard play, I don't know if we've had a explosive scoring guard like that since I've been here. James and Shaq were in a different way, could go have big nights. But I think obviously Sam has shown that he has ability to really to get it going. And but with him and Drain, Ladavius Drain, I think both those guys will help us. We weren't a really good shooting basketball team last year, but I think that was an area we wanted to improve on. And having those two guys, I think we stepped that up a big deal from last season. And Sam has been a guy that I think can play on the ball too. He's a combo guard, so he'll play some point guard, but where he's going to make his help us is being off the ball and being a guy that can be a threat offensively.
Coach Darian said that his favorite NBA player is Derrick Rose, and obviously, you see him slashing and driving. That's maybe one of the elements he takes from his game. But is there anything else about Darian's game that reminds you of D. Rose?
Well, I think when I look at D. Rose is super competitive, right? And he he plays with he doesn't change his facial expressions very much, and that's kind of what DJ does. And just the way they play, Darren is a fan favorite because of how he plays the game. He enjoys the game, and he shows that by how he plays. I mean, loose balls or taking charges or getting out in transition, and you talk about driving and slashing to the rim. I mean, I think he's not afraid. He's going to take hits, and he knows that. He always have a couple bruises after every game, and he enjoys that part of it. And that's how he plays. As I said earlier, I want Darian to not forget who he is, because that's a big part of his success. But I think Darren is also, I think we talked about guys modifying their game a little bit. D Rose has said to modify his game. He's not as, he's kind of slowed down a little bit, and you see him being more, have a mid-range, and I like to see DJ continue to do that and expand his game in terms of his three-point shot.
We're going to hear from Darian just a bit, Coach. He's played 98 games at Tulsa. For you as a coach, what's it like to see a guy like him, who's kind of the heart and soul and the fan favorite, to get to have that extra year for him and to finish out maybe the way things should end for a senior?
It's been a blessing coaching Darian. He's a young man. I've said this several times, in terms of what college athletics, college basketball is all about. And you don't see a lot of this, where the young man came here as a freshman. He needed to improve his game. He got some minutes, played a little bit more as a sophomore. And then his junior year, he kind of took off. But his patience in understanding who he is as a player, embracing that, and working on improving on it in other areas. That's what this game, when I started, was all about, and not the microwave society we're kind of in right now. And I'm so, in terms of just pulling for a guy like that, and I think our fans understand that too. Here's a guy who's been here for a while, and I'm grateful that the NCAA allowed those kids to have a normal senior year. Last year was not normal, but in no means, and all of our kids all over the country had to work through it, and I'm glad they gave the opportunity for these young people to have a normal senior year.
You mentioned you got a chance to scrimmage about a week ago, things that you couldn't do last year. How much more ahead of the game are you in game prep, understanding the talent on your roster than you were a year ago?
We talked about that as a staff. It's a great question just the other day, and comparing ourselves how far along we are now compared to last year, and we're leaps and bounds. I mean, you talked about the ability to do some of the things we're doing now. We were so you had to, in terms of preparing yourself, it was unique. It was so different, and we started the season. I don't know that we felt confident and comfortable about where we're at as a basketball team, and I think we're in a much better place now, understanding what we have. And you still, once you start playing games, you'll learn a lot more. Everybody feels really good about their team this time of year, but I do know this about this club. Is they're anxious to learn. There's not a day that they don't come to practice wanting to practice, and that's throughout our team, 1 through 15. Those guys have all been, a joy to be on the floor with, and they've all come with great excitement to work every day.
Frank Haith, we thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you guys play here in a couple of weeks.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
We're going to hear from Darian Jackson in just a bit, but one of the things that I thought was cool that Coach Haith said is that he's almost played 100 games, but still learning, which shows a lot about the character that he has. What did you learn from what Coach Haith said?
I love that about what he had to say about DJ, and then also you just kind of got a sense of watching that piece of him coaching his players, and you said it, how involved he is. He's not going to sit back and just let his assistants take over. I think he's a very hands-on guy. He's a positive coach. He's somebody who is able to adjust in styles. I mean, Mike, you mentioned it, that there's no player under 6'3" this year. And Tulsa's typically a team that plays downhill real fast. They get in the lane, they drive. So is that the same identity that they're going to have, but just a bigger size this year? It remains to be seen. But, Tulsa bounced in the first round of the AAC tournament last year. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of unfinished business, and I'm sure they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulders.
Yeah, but picked 6 in the preseason poll, so there must be enough belief in what they have coming back and some new guys that can really make this team go.
Last season for Tulsa was the first time since they came into the American that they didn't exceed preseason expectations. All of the years previously, they finished ahead of preseason expectations. It was just kind of like the joke, like, hey, we're going to put Tulsa at 7th, but they're going to finish 4th, 5th, or 6th. And that's a lot of the Frank Haith effect, is he'll just out-scout opponents. And his players are always ready to play. And that defense, it really is difficult to scout against. And the reason why I harp on that is because I mentioned it, Brooke mentioned it, when you have size coupled with athleticism in a defense in which it's amoeba-like, it's constantly changes, you can switch a lot, you may only score 55 points, but the other team may only be scoring 50 or 48. And Tulsa wins those close games because of their defense size and athleticism. They didn't really have that last season. I think they have it this season.
We are now going to be joined by Darian Jackson. He was the conference's 6th man of the year last year. Played nearly 100 games in Tulsa. You're the old man around the block now, DJ. Coach said, though, still always learning. So what have you learned here in your 5th year?
Things that I've learned here in my 5th year is just trying to be a leader, trying to get my teammates and my teammates up to speed, and all the new guys, just getting them ready for the season to come and all the adversities that we have to face.
What went into the decision to come back for this year?
What went into the decision of me coming back this year was I spoke with Coach Haith and my family multiple times about the decision, and like Tulsa is just been a second home to me, and it was like a no-brainer. Like all the things that Coach Haith and I have been through the last 4 to 5 years, it was like it was no doubt if I was deciding to come back to play for a 5th year, I was coming back to Tulsa.
DJ, I asked Rebecca a class question. I'm going to ask you the same thing. You're an art major, and so I'm wondering what inspires you as an artist, and do you have a favorite piece that you have completed or are working on?
What inspired me to be like an artist is just like this, the way that I can be free with like myself, and like I can do like a lot of things without like people like over my shoulder or telling me what to do. Like all the things I do is the things that I feel is right, and I feel like, oh, this is what makes this piece feel good. And with my major, I'm more of like a graphic design, and like I like to do like film and stuff like that. So like I don't have like a favorite piece. Like I love all my work.
Darian, Mike O'Donnell here in studio. Do you think you could make my broadcast highlight tape after the season? If you're
I'll
ready for the
I'll
graphic
love to do that
design.
for you.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I'll drop you an email. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool.
A question, it's good for having continuity, but having a guy come back after he left like Jariah, how was that for you playing next to a guy that you're used to playing with? You didn't get a chance to play with him last season. Now he comes back. That duo between you and him, that's a pretty dynamic combination.
Yeah. I love Jariah. Jariah is my roommate. He was my roommate before he left, and he's my roommate now. And, like, just having that type of leadership and him playing at the Pac-12, like, he's coming here and he's already, like, knows our offense, knows our defense. So he was able to jump in and, like, just pick up right where he left off. And he was able to help the newcomers adapt to our offense and our defense and our model as well. So just having him around and having his experiences will always be great.
DJ, our media members have some questions for you via Zoom. I'll let Tom navigate the first question for you.
Okay, cool.
All right. For our first question will be from TJ Eckert of KTUL.
Yeah, Darian, curious on the 6th man role. I think you get asked it all the time, but want to ask you again on how you've adapted to that role, and, the idea off the bench may not be appealing for everybody, and kind of how you've just embraced that role.
Coach Haith and I talk all the time about it. Like, he asked me, like, where am I most comfortable at? And I was like, whatever makes us win is what I'm comfortable with. So he was like, he feels like I'm better off the bench, and I went with it. Like, cause I trust what he's doing. I trust his system. And, like, I saw Martin Zigbanu, who got 6th man of the year. And, like, at first, like, he talked to us about it, and Martin's had his Martins was coming off the bench, and he started to excel in his game. So I was like, I can be this player too. And I followed Coach Haith's process, and the sky was the limit for me.
All right, and our last question will come from Kelly Hines at the Tulsa World.
Darian, what have you seen from some of the new guys, and in particular from Sam Griffin?
Just their competitiveness, and they're willing to compete. Like all of our newcomers, you can see once soon as they step on the court, or soon as we start our drills, they're going 110%, and you can see that they want to win, and you can see that they want to be here, and you can see that they're willing to buy into what our coaches are saying and what we're saying as leaders, and us being here with a lot of experience, and like that they're happy to be here, and like they're willing to compete.
Thank you so much, DJ. We're looking forward to watching you guys tip off the season here in just a couple weeks.